going to do what Bonnie set a good example, take 3 questions and then let our panelists answer. So, sir.
Sidney Friedberg, Breaking Defense. A question primarily for Dr. Shen. From the Chinese perspective, which is obviously very different from the sort of U.S.-Philippine perspective, what are the range of options for President Xi responding going forward? What, given both the Chinese understanding of the law and the Chinese understanding of the history, historical rights, and of, frankly, national pride and sovereignty, what are the kinds of things that Beijing could reasonably do in response to this decision?
So, Richard.
Thank you. Great panel. I'm Richard Cronin from the Stiffen Center. I have a question that may end up going more towards Mike McDivitt, but others may, I hope others will weigh in. One is, what are the implications of this tribunal ruling for the U.S.-Philippines alliance in terms of, does it change anything in terms of, for instance, if a Chinese vessel sinks a Philippine official vessel, Navy, Coast Guard, etc.? But then, more broadly, this issue of freedom navigation exercises, I've been annoyed by all the talk about within 12 miles thing, because I think the mere mention of 12 miles gives some significance to these Chinese artificial reefs or islands. So for freedom of navigation, are we going to, do you think that the U.S. will still be talking about, or the Navy, about within 12 miles on any of these features, because now they're patently, they're patently illegal in terms of generating any maritime space, except for a safety zone?
So I'll let our panelists decide who wants to take which questions, but who would like to start?
There are 2 questions I can handle. One is if China and Vietnam can truly peacefully negotiate to settle their dispute. Yes. For instance, they used to unfortunately fought against each other in 1980. And they negotiated peacefully, giving and taking. China said, you take this land of mine. Vietnam said, you take my land of this. They trade. They succeed. Now they resolve permanently for good. And in Beibu, Tonkin Bay, because Vietnam got the island that used to be on the Chinese side of the deleted 2 dash line. So per UNCLOS, Vietnam may claim more maritime rights, but that might be unreasonable for China to accept. So 2 countries negotiate to agree that Vietnam may take a little more than 50% of the entire area, and China take some 40% plus. This is the way, taking and giving. The challenge is how to apply this spirit in more difficult area within the overlapped area between 9-dash line and Vietnam's EEZ. Vietnam said, no way, that's the UN law. China said, that's my historical rights. And today, the court say the rights may not be valid. Well, why we must listen to the court? If we are friends. China used to delete 2 lines. We don't need to stick to the 2 lines. When Vietnam says, you are my friend, you can go to limited overlapping area with stricter courts and pay some fee. So this is not disallowed by UNCLOS. But that has to be negotiated between the 2 sides. Some may disagree. But a country, China may say, I would relinquish my EEZ rights to allow some other country to enter. UNCLOS would not demand China, you cannot relinquish your rights. It's all up to negotiation. So arbitration and mediation and negotiation, all these three TION provide us opportunity. So let's see how we can work out. I hope we can have a happy Act 2.
All right, can I, yeah.
Well, I was going to let Tom speak because it's directly related to
Okay,
this.
I have something on that point too. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I'd like to respond a bit about the comments by Dr. Ding. The negotiation on the Tonkin Gulf actually is based on UNCLOS principles. So that fact is recognized, and it serves as the foundation for negotiation. And we all know that during the negotiation, some compromises have been made, and the compromises has been made is based on the question of trust and political will. And we did have this kind of thing before when we negotiated the Tonkin Gulf, and we do not have them right now. That is the issue. I'd like to mention also about the recognition of law from the small country like Vietnam, of course, as compared with China. So the law is the weapon for the small country to cope with the big country, and I think that it is the basic approach of Vietnam with regard to negotiation on the territorial disputes, both on the land and on the sea.
On the resource issue, one of the things that it strikes me that the findings that we heard about today may make joint development easier throughout the Spratlys. First of all, by essentially legally erasing the 9-dash line, you don't have a problem with overlap in the EEZ there. Secondly, by saying that none of the Spratlys are an island, they're all rocks. There are only 12-mile sovereignty claims around those that are above water at high tide. That means there are no EEZs and hence no EEZ overlaps. And one of the issues that China has always had on the table is we are willing to do joint development, absolutely. But the precondition was you have to agree that China has sovereignty. Well, it may not make any difference now. Who cares if China has sovereignty over a rock that only has a 12-mile territorial sea, if the issue is joint development of oil or what have you in fields more broadly. So my point is by turning those Spratlys into nothing but rocks, thereby eliminating a Spratly EEZ, thereby eliminating the problem of overlapping EEZs from Spratly features to continental states, and thereby by removing the 9-dash line, that clarifies a lot of things that can make it easier for the countries that are competing for sovereignty over those features to put aside sovereignty and get on with joint development in a way that heretofore was not possible. To Richard's point on innocent passage, or freedom of navigation, it's important to understand that innocent passage is one of an important high seas freedom, and thereby passing within. You have to pass within 12 miles. In other words, you have to transit somebody's territorial sea to make it innocent passage. And so I think the senator mentioned we should immediately do a freedom of navigation op around Mischief Reef. Well, part of the problem that the government has faced is China has not made any heretofore made any official claims on what maritime entitlements are associated with the Spratly Islands. They've been silent on all of those points. And so the only thing left, it's hard to challenge an excessive claim when an excessive claim has not been made. And so the only thing to challenge was and do an innocent passage freedom of navigation. And so now we arguably the law says that Mischief Reef does not have or is not a rock. It is definitely for sure, no kidding, a low tide elevation. So in theory, we could sail within 500 meters. You also asked, what are the implications for the Mutual Defense Treaty? It strikes me the one thing that we have to be concerned about is if a literal reading of the law would say that China is now illegally occupying Mischief Reef, which is part of the Philippine continental shelf. So one would hope the Philippines is not going to try to evict the Chinese from Mischief Reef. But the point is, now would the treaty come into play because legally that has now been declared essentially Philippine territory? And so these are really interesting. Arguably, Second Thomas Shoal falls into that same sort of a category. And so these are interesting problems that our State Department lawyers have to sort out.
Well, Ambassador Tung mentioned that due to the lack of trust and political will, China and Vietnam now have some difficulty in negotiating. Mike mentioned that China used the excuse of territory sovereignty to justify its demand of co-development. As the island is small, territory water is small, so China used a small bargain for a bigger return. I would say, if it's a bargain, and China 2 years ago submitted a set of documents of 12 pieces of document that Vietnam used to say in a way that Spratly and Plaza belong to China. Prior to 1975, Vietnam created some document of such. So why Vietnam could negate its commitment? Vietnam's leader told Deng Xiaoping because they have succeeded in defeating America, they no longer need China's help. Or they would say that used to be committed by the previous government, which no longer exists. That commitment was given without parliament ratification. Well, these were a reason, but not a perfect reason. And Vietnam have reclaimed over such a disputed island. Well, if I were Chinese leader, I would say I would not enter the disputed water to fish, but I want all and each and all island back and build my outpost. Not reclaiming a lot, even though Vietnam has reclaimed. Vietnam would be very painful to do the trading. So that's why China has proposed, in principle, sharing territorial sovereign dispute, but co-develop. But China has not managed to proposing an enticing proposal in what limited area to co-develop, in what majority of the overlapped area not to co-develop, which island return, which majority island not to return. So China need to improve how to invent and sell a package which would win the heart and build the trust and the willingness. China need to improve. But I would say they keep some island, and we have limited access not to the entirety of the overlapped water. Still is a worthy proposal for all claimants to consider.
Unfortunately, our time is up for this panel. The problem is we have to get a bunch of you, a lot of people, through the lunch line, and that at 1:15, Daniel Crittenbrink of the National Security Council is going to come and give a talk. So please join me in thanking our panelists.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.